Good evening, televiewers. Welcome to this first edition of Prime Hour for the month of August. And this week, we are today going to be looking at the concept of regional balance and its reality in Cameroon. It actually works in favor of uniting Cameroonians and making them identify in what Cameroon can boast of as resources at all the levels, or it is working against this concept of national unity where a few are seen as benefiting from the wealth of the nation against the majority. That's going to be for our first topic for tonight. If time permits, we are also going to be looking at another topic which has to do with a national language, an indigenous national language. Are we going to answer from this platform to the fact that it is an imperative for Cameroon as we speak? We are discussing these two topics with our panelists. Two of them are already in the studio with me. Dr. John Ako is a lecturer in some universities across Cameroon. We're glad to have you, Doctor, with us.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine, Mr. Leonard, and again, once more, talking issues that affect the political, economic, and socio-cultural nature of Cameroon. We are talking of regional balance, a concept that came in because the concept of meritocracy failed, and so mediocrats now stand around to use it as a political tool to govern, and why not control some of the areas where they feel politics can come to maybe win votes or win confidence.
Okay. We also are in the company of Dr. Michael Ndimancho, who also lectures in some universities across Cameroon. We are glad to have you, Doctor.
Thanks so much, Mr. Kum. It's a pleasure to be here and perhaps to be able to help in redressing as a civil society, maybe give my own modest contribution on how our country could become a better place. It is our country. We fix it because it is a place where we were born, and I think that's the place where we will die, and it is our place, and I invite every Cameroonian to make Cameroon his or her place. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay. We also are expecting the arrival into the studio of Prince Joel Mukage, who is a journalist. But we should inform our televiewers that Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel is not going to be part of this edition of the program because of reasons beyond his control. Dr. John Ako, we also must note that there is a law that actually specifies quotas that are supposed to be given to specific regions in Cameroon, and that law also states very clearly that even if regional balance were to be engaged for entrance into schools, it must be taken from the perspective of those who pass with at least 12 average and above. So it's not to say that anybody with any mark or score is going to be given a pass mark just because the government wants to respect the notion of regional balance. But it should also be noted that it is not something that started today. It dates as far back as the 1982s. So there have been some changes made in respect to that, but it is not something that it's today. We are going to be looking at how real that has been and whether people actually know that it is part of our law. But I want you to just state your first reading of what is called regional balance in Cameroon. Do you think it is more in theory or it actually obtains on the ground?
Yeah, regional balance spelled out is a principle which comes to contradict, in fact, between two eras, between two leadership, the Ayijo regime and the Bias regime. And somewhere you will imagine that at the time when some regions start feeling lacking, there was an outcry that others are more represented than they are And so the policy of regional balance was to fix quotas that each and every region will benefit when it comes to public examination or public concours. Today, when we look at regional balance again, you can imagine that there was once the UB held a faculty saga, which even took out the particular, the vice chancellor of that university, because he published a list. He thinks that those were the meritorious candidates, and then it comes later that was a different list that was published by the Minister of Higher Education. That has been very old as 2008. You can equally imagine that there was this equally entrance into the university, Higher Teachers Training College of the University of Marwa, and which we saw within it that once the results were published, the head of state has made a political statement that 60% of the entrance into this particular school was to go to the Grand North. And looking at the results that came out after statistics and other calculations were made, those in the Grand North said just not up to 20% of those who entered or were recruited in that school were all from the Grand North. And you can still see that it was not just a law that was to be respected, but that political ambitions to be met. So the head of state came later that there should be an additional list of close to 500 new candidates. Away from these 500 new candidates, the final list that was published had about 4,899 newly recruited staff of trainees in that very school. Looking at it, you won't even imagine that those who were recruited into the University of Marwa, all those who deposited their applications into that school to write that particular concours that are coming out from the 3 northern regions were admitted not based on the results they obtained after writing such an entrance examination, but because there was a political promise. And we have to ask ourselves if today the respect of that norm comes into comfort Cameroonians or comforts the armpits of the political power that be. And you can go ahead to cite a lot of it in schools, which we have noticed this has been practiced. What of other training centers that belong to the state that Cameroonians don't know? You realize that the law on regional balance always and will always come into play when it needs to suit the integrity of those who make the decision. More people should equally know that regional balance came into place after President Paul Biya replaced the head of state, the then pioneer president of the Republic, Emmanuel, and what happened to the northern regions could only be noticed some years after. Years after, because top positions that were reserved from the north were acquired and quietly transferred to those from the southern part of Cameroon, to the beneficiaries of those who supported the Biya regime, as a new elite has to develop. Within this particular development of a new elite, there was a need also for President Paul Biya to protect himself from what he called political scavengers. Political scavengers that were not comfortable because he took power from the head of state. The consequences were loudly noticed, especially in the 3 northern regions, because top positions in the military, in top administrative areas, were swept out by those from the south. We ask the question, was it this principle a political manipulation or a policy that was meant to enrich others politically? But then we are saying regional balance is not only a study from a Cameroonian perspective, it can work well in areas where the country developed naturally with geographical features that make people distinct, to encourage. We cannot come within a nation like Cameroon and think regionalism, which was not of a geographical making. Looking at regionalization from Anglophone, Francophone, it can work, but when we go to regions that have a similar culture, a similar makeup, and then we think we need to balance them, it becomes a problem. So this is where we have a problem. You remember that the Anglophone crisis came as a regional balance inequality principle, where people were said they were marginalized. They were marginalized because certain top positions, certain issues have not equally been given to Anglophones. When you go to the United States and many others like Switzerland, where regionalism might equally function well, where people are parts of activities, it is possible for us to go regional balance. The regional balance should not come in an area where the areas or the regions cannot equally be enforced. I mean enforced through incentive, training, and schools. So if we want to practice regional balance, we should equally know that institutionally, the nation is constructed in a way that we can have the impetus, we can have the material need at every basic level to fulfill. But when some people start giving excuses that others benefit from some schools, that notwithstanding, Douala and Yaoundé have been one of those areas with the most and well advanced. One of the Bamilikes in the West region who have the means to sponsor their children all over the national territory, wherever they have the best schools. So what will happen if we have to practice this principle entirely? It will mean regionalism was simply a policy that came in to support the strong against the weak when we can notice, and it becomes an instrument for the weak when the weak too thinks that they should play a better role.
Yes, you are reading of the concept of regional balance in our context, Cameroon today, Dr. Ndimancho.
Yes, I really want to go back memory lane to see where this concept in Cameroon came from. And I want to look it back. You mentioned that it came during the reign of Ahidjo, and it came at the tail end of the reign of Ahidjo. That was in September 1982. And I'm going to be able to read something here that Ahidjo, in instituting the regional balance, said. He argued that as the regulator of the nation's economic and social activities, the state must encourage, through appropriate incentives, those regions which for historical and sociological reasons are lagging behind. Our policy of balanced development must be applied not only in the distribution of infrastructure and public amenities, but also in the training of individuals. This is what Ahidjo said. Whether he had an objective point of view about this or not, because if you look at the reign of Ahidjo, you know that every sphere of life during his reign was governed by the Northerners. During the Ahidjo reign, there was this cry of favoritism of the Northerners in the army, in the general administration. But then, this is somebody who wanted to make balance about how life should be run, especially those regions that were disfavored by history, because we know that there are some regions in Cameroon that were disfavored by history. Now, we came out with the reign of Mr. Pobia, where we have realized that he came and continued in the footsteps of Ahidjo by actually trying to reinforce what he called regional balance. But we have realized that regional balance is becoming, we realize that if regional balance has to become a cornerstone of government policy, then this regional balance must have objectivity in appointment. It must be objective as far as appointments are concerned, and this is not what we are seeing as far as regional balance is concerned. Sometimes we talk about regional balance only in terms of appointment. When we look at infrastructure, we don't see regional balance. Social amenities, we realize that there are some places which are better than others, because even at the end, because some people argue that, okay, let us respect regional balance in appointment, but but in infrastructure, people should be allowed actually to develop their own. Now they are talking about this decentralization and whatsoever. But I think that regional balance become more divisive. It is very, very divisive in Cameroon, more than bringing the people together. Because regional balance has created what we call the family dynasty. The family dynasty, in terms of the fact that you realize that you find in a particular region where a particular name thrives through. When you go to every region, most of the regions in Cameroon, you realize there are some names that are household names. They are household names because they go from father to son to relatives and so on. A lot of nepotism has enter into it. So you realize that there is this family dynasty whereby people do not have the opportunity. The children of the have-nots do not have the opportunity to be able to grab some of those positions, those juicy positions that some people, important people of some regions, actually are grabbing. So regions favored by history actually are thriving. So as I said, during the reign of Ahidjo, the northern region thrived. The reign of Bia, you realize that the southern region is thriving, and we now have a particular, tribe called the Betit. Actually, when you go to almost every office, you find that the people of this particular tribe or the particular region are found. And this is what we are trying to actually say. We are asking for meritocracy. Because in as much as we say regional balance is something that is inclusive, that gives advantages to some of those people or some of those regions which do not have the opportunity, if you, maybe in terms of money or in terms of favoritism whatsoever, to get where some people are, where we think that meritocracy should be given a chance. Because we have had Dr. Akum mention of what happened in Marwa in 2008. And of course, who was at the center of what happened? It was the very President Paul Biya who actually was out to fight against what we call favoritism. Because he had promised, and he has promised the people about 60% getting into a national school of advanced training teaching school. And people had actually taken that for a gospel kind of a thing from a leader, and we think that this shouldn't come from a person that we think should be, our own father. So it continues in other regions, and you have seen that even in other regions, when something is created, people want their own people to take the first place in governing that particular parastatal, in running that particular school. We have seen that happen in many other spheres of life in Cameroon, but we think that the issue of regional balance, it is a good thing because it gives room, it gives advantages to people who are not, who could not accept to certain positions, but we still think that meritocracy should be given a chance because we have become too divisive and this issue of regional balance has become too exclusive, and it's only understood by what we call the politicians and bureaucrats, because the politicians alone know the way they are working with this issue of regional balance, because when it comes to political appointment, we do not know how this is worked, because you are appointed according to the color in which you militate for.
I'll give the quotas as supposed to be distributed in Cameroon. We have Pool 1. You have the Adamawa extreme north and north. The Adamawa is expected to produce 5%, extreme north 18%, the north region 7%. Pool 2, we have center region 15%, south region 5%, east region 4%. Pool 3, we have littoral and west, littoral 12% and the west region 13%. And we have the northwest 12% and southwest 8%. We are looking at, there is a law, we remember recently the President of the Republic through the Minister of State Secretary General at the Presidency, Secretary General at the Presidency, instructing the Secretary General at the Prime Ministry to ensure that at the level of parastatals, regional balance is respected. When you look at the structures we have around Cameroon, Prince Joel, if you're just joining us, do you see a regional representative? Do you see a coloration reflecting our regions according to the quotas just read here?
Thank you very much for having me on your platform, Mr. Leo. Good evening to co-panelists. And a special good evening and congratulations to Tamai Jarvis, who's been appointed as a communication officer with the Catholic University, and most particularly to the people of the Northwest and the Southwest region who should be watching the program tonight, and the peace-loving people of Mr. J subdivision. Mr. Leo, the truth is I listened attentively to what you read, which I'm not ignorant of. But now the question is it real within the field? It's not. It's not, because if you want to look at the just ended budget for 2022, a particular region, that should be the South region, had a colossal sum. And you want to ask yourself whether, because the money that the South region had could be divided to at least 6 regions. But now, when we talk about regional balance, Mr. Leo, I fear in Cameroon we do not respect it. We may not be respecting it because maybe the head of state gives the opportunity to certain political big guns who maybe for several reasons known to themselves decide who takes some of these positions. So I think that, Mr. Leo, there is actually a problem. There is a problem so far as regional balance is concerned in the country, Cameroon. This is because the term regional balance means that Cameroon has got 10 regions. And of course, as you read there, the Northwest region should have 12%. Is that? And the Southwest should take home 8%. But now, I fear that that is not the reality in the country. It's not the reality because if I were to ask you how many ministers, because regional balance gets across every sphere, it means that even if the head of state were to go so far as, not even the head of state, if we were to go by competitive exams in Cameroon, at one time, There are students who actually pass, but they fail. They end up failing because they need to ensure that, okay, your region where you're coming from, we already took maybe say 2%, or we took 5%, or say 10%. And these 10% meet up with the regional balance so far as your region is concerned. And that is why a student who maybe scores 19 in an exam ends up failing. The student is not dull. The student may be failed because talking about regional balance, their region was already topped. But now, do you want to ask yourself whether or not other regions actually regulate? True, they may regulate, but the common man and other divisions do not feel the effervescence. It is because particular political classes limit this regional balance within a particular division. And that is why you go to a division, or you go to a region like the Northwest that has, I think, 7 divisions, ends up being limited at the level of Mezam, that is maybe say Bamenda, say Mankon, or maybe say Bali. But now, Santa, thank you for that, Miss Alio. But now, there's someone who comes from Misaje subdivision, which is in the Northwest, feel the impact. There's someone who comes from Iso, that is in Menjum division, feel the impact. There's someone who comes from Noni, that is in Uku, feel the impact. There's someone who comes from Kikai Kilaiki, that is in Bui division, feel the impact, because that is regional balance. Regional balance does not mean Bamenda. Regional balance means Northwest. Regional balance means Southwest. Now, if you go to Southwest, does regional balance means Boya, Fako division? Does regional balance means Limbe, Fako division? Does regional balance Ketekras to Munya? No. We're talking about regional balance. Let someone who comes from Mabunji, someone who comes from Maiwan, someone who comes from Moyoka, someone who comes from Manthe, that is in Manu division, someone who comes from
Tinto, in Upper Bayangi.
In Upper Bayangi, because regional balance should not be divisional balance, because most of us, our leaders who are up there, have changed the conception. Because many a time, Mr. Leo, I used to feel in Cameroon, it's very true that the head should wear the pain, but at times when I look at what things that are ongoing in the country, I'm feared to say that maybe the head of state gives the powers to those that be, because it's very normal that he cannot be all over. Okay, he knows that in the Northwest there are big guns, in the Southwest there are big guns. We should not limit it to the Northwest and the Southwest. But now, when you go to the far North region, which is a very big region, now there's someone who comes from Fotokol, even feel that there is regional balance. There's someone who comes from extreme far north, the boundaries with Kiosi, with the with Chad, that is around Kiosi. Kuseri, thank you.
Kiosi is in the south.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Now, does someone in Kuseri actually feel that there is regional balance? Because regional balance, Ms. Alio, in my own definition, means that an entire region, looking at all the different subdivisions, the divisions that make up a division. So, I think that regional balance should be looked upon in such a way that if a division, or rather a region, has 7 divisions at least. I told you a story, Mr. Leo, here, that when I attended the regional elections, that we have regional councillors today, when the elections were going on, it was discovered that amongst the different 7 regional councillors, a particular division.
Regional executive.
A regional executive, thank you for that. Now, the regional executive, a particular division, that is Mezam, was seen to be carrying 2, whereas a particular division was having nothing. So they had to call off the elections for a moment. It had to be postponed or suspended for the division to be brought on board. But now, if you had this kind of a situation within the regional balance, whereby Mezam division, I'm not stigmatizing Mezam, but many a time we are lost and feel that Northwest is limited to Mezam. We are lost to think that Southwest is limited to Fako. We are lost to think that Center is limited to Mfunzi. And we are lost to think that Littoral is Duwala, Vuri. No, Littoral is someone who comes from Sanaga Maritime. Littoral is someone who comes from the Mongo division. It means Suza. It means Mbanga. It means Penja, where
Yeah,
Paul
in the Senegal, even when you get to the Senegal Maritime, one would think that it ends in a day, but you have places like Mbongo, you have places like Mwanko, you have places like Bamboo, and a host of others.
And a host of others. And that is where the problem is, because if you go at the level of regional balance, Mr. Leo, those who are listening to us, who are maybe the authorities and matter, will argue with us that no, they cut across the 10 regions, but you will discover that the 10 different regions ends up being the divisional heads.
Okay. Now, I want us to focus on parastatals. We know these corporations that are existing. When you look at them, those that are in the north, is there regional balance? Those in the south, west, is there regional balance in the littoral and a host of others?
Yeah,
we find regional balance in practice in them.
You are going very far, even. One of the things which I raised during my first outing was that regional balance becomes so useful when the interest of those who feel cheated comes into place. And that is what you notice in Boya. That is what we notice at the University of Maroua. When it comes to Sode Coton, Sode Blé, or Sinadi, Emia, nobody knows how it is done. If really regional balance was to be respected, it should be a triangular issue. And if we are talking of public parastatals, check them, look at them well. Those who have been as directors, it is like some people have a lifetime mandate, a mandate more than that of the President of the Republic. Some people have been directors in public offices, which is life eternal. I'm talking of presently those who manage something like the SNH. I believe some people know them very well. You can think how long they have been there. Think of those who governed after Iya Mohammed was ousted at Sode Coton. We don't know whether the management has changed or the recruitment. How do they even recruit at Sode Coton? Are they always public offers? Because for public recruitment, there is a law that recruitments or admission into any school should be public, so that all Cameroonians should have access to it. Does the government go to this extent to even check what is being done? There was a small outcry that Sode Coton now micmaro with a lot of recruitment within. For those who equally, when you hear of this, none of those who are thinking of being there are feeling cheated. So somewhere, people are thinking that regional balance remains, a puppet, a whistle that can only be blown only when those who think they should have the quota. Some people have get into the army, get into the gendarme, get to the police personnel all around the country. There are certain offices that no matter where you are, you will find a particular region or division present. But there are certain offices in the same military force, you will not find other tribes. So it is like some particular jobs are reserved for others and others cannot benefit from it. So when a school is located, I want to take an example. There is a national school for forestry based in Balmayo, and you ask people, how many Cameroonians are even aware how people get into such a school? Are they even aware that a school exists there? There's a national school at the Sahel made for training of what I call maybe forestry or environmental protection. How many people are in that Sahel institution? Because it is found in the Grand North, and so those who are there benefit from its expatriate. If this is the case, that is what we are saying. The Ayijo policy on regional balance did not come to feature that those who own a school own everything there. You are making to create or to lift up. Obviously, it is normal that by proximity, Douala, Yaoundé, Bafoussam, that is a triangle. We move within these corridors on daily basis. So schools and other infrastructures have developed. How can we get the other regions also concerned? Which means that regional balance, when we look at it at appointments, comes in most often than not to consolidate the political will of those who have maneuvered the policy. And this is what happened in all the schools in Cameroon. You will imagine well that those who appointed the prime minister some time ago, looking at me seated here, that the stadium in Limbe was not called for. If there was a need for regionalism, we have 3 or 4 football infrastructure in Fako alone. What do you call regional balance? When the whole region is the southwest. Where do we find regional balance? If all the training facilities for the central region, for the just ended African Cup of Nations, Yaoundé is hosting 2 international stadiums. What do you call regional balance? When Bafia, Olembe, Obala, you find Monatele, Nzoetele don't have anything. Meaning, the 4 training facilities for Olembe are based on Yaoundé. The 4 training facilities for Amadu Ahijo Stadium is based in Yaoundé. Meaning Yaoundé have been summed up to be the Mfundi division. And what regionalism are we talking about? So this is exactly the country that brings in a policy and is unable to manage. To some quarters, people are even saying that there is a need for a national institution for regional balance. The National Institute for Regional Balance,
to check this is?
All concourse and admission into what should be checked.
Because recently, the President of the Republic, through the Minister of State, Secretary General at the Presidency, instructed that this should be checked. I don't know what
we don't need to check. That is what we are saying, that if we have the, how can I call, the board of directors for certain institutions, there's a need for maybe a board of directors for regional balance. Okay. If we want it to be, because in Enam, remember the past story was that 35 people are admitted. If you say Yaoundé is having 15%, Far North is having 18%. 17
from one division.
One division. Okay, it is a time for the Northwest. Northwest have to present 3 candidates. Yeah. And the minister acting for Northwest more powerful is coming from Mezam.
It's Mezam.
So obviously, those who have been following him, their children are there. What becomes of Nkambe? What becomes of Bui? What of Ndongamato? This is the need for regionalism institutionalized and the law enforced. The moment the director of that institution doesn't behave well, we replace him. If Enam had Mezam student there present, Mezam should know that the next concours for HTTC in Bamenda, they have no place. That's what is done. So there's a need of give and take. And that we cannot enforce one region against another. If there is a need for a colonel from Menchum, then we should know that in the whatsoever other force of the army, the 6-star divisional officer being appointed as delegate for national security in the north, from the south, from the northwest, should not come again from Meza. That should come from Bui. When we have such an institution with statistics that are read across the board, we know how many concours and how many institutions are launched every year. Before even they are launched, this repartition should be made. And regional balance with divisional equality should get into play. Get it today. You remember that FACO and many others, Vuri, the Vuri division, the, how can I call it, Mfundi in Yaoundé, they are highly enforced. Highly enforced. Everything concentrates there. All the university, Yaoundé 1, Yaoundé 2, if you get on them, all of them find themselves at the Mfundi division. And you start thinking, people will tell you that, no, it is because of proximity. It's not. That is the need for some nations to rebalance their economy. Because everybody cannot, the war we are fighting, the war in the Northwest, the Boko Haram crisis, was tilted to neglect of some regions. And people know it very well. That people need to move somewhere to come and look for jobs. And when there are no jobs in those places, those who are vacant start going for alternatives. We fought Boko Haram in the North using policies. And these policies have to go with developmental policies to balance the economy so that everybody should have access at least to a certain level behind their backyard. Not that others have so many schools and others have nothing. Some people have roads, others have nothing. Okay. So these are some of the things, I mean, there is a need to rethink what we really mean as regional balance.
Dr. Michael Ndimancho, now the president, it is in the law, very in red and white. Now, the president reminds, but I don't know whether you know some of these parastatals across Cameroon. Do you see them respecting the law or this reminder from the presidency? What would give these directors the audacity to flaunt, not only to disrespect the law, but to give a deaf ear to the call from the President of the Republic?
Mr. Liu, let me start by correcting something that Prince Joel said there. Noni is not in Uku.
Yes, somebody wrote to me.
Yes, Noni is not in Uku. You have Noni subdivision and Uku subdivision. So that can create some war. Yeah. So I thank God I was on.
Two persons are
that's right. Okay, that's right. Yeah, you know, some of the, yeah, because sometimes it's, okay, I was just going to come to answer, to say, you know, sometimes people look at the head to be able to deal with issues that are on the ground. We talked about the President of the Republic, who in 2008 committed one monumental error by at the University of Marawa that Dr. Aku actually x-rayed here. You know, people made as if they didn't see that. And in my submission, I said that regional balance in Cameroon is too emotional, it's too explosive. Regional, and it's only understood by the politicians. Do you know that actually in this Cameroon, there are some parastatals that are considered regional parastatals and some national. There are some that you are appointed there, like they tell you, go and finish it. And for go and finish it means that those are those parastatals that don't yield income. They don't yield money. And when you are appointed there, it is not like an appointment, it's like a punishment. And we have had issues in Cameroon whereby you talk about the president giving instructions. Everything, most of the things in Cameroon are guided by politics, whereby you are appointed. Let me take for example of a university. You are a head, you are a dean, and you are appointed by the presidential decree like the rector of the university. And when you are going about doing your things in the faculty, if the rector calls you to order, you tell the rector, I enjoy the same presidential decree as you. We have heard that several times in this country. You see this kind of the administration that it is centralized. It means that what? It looks up to one person. It means that you can disrespect your hierarchy just for the mere fact that you have been appointed by the same person who appointed your hierarchy. And that is what is happening in Cameroon. We have had those kind of things happening in Cameroon, and people have written about them. The media has spoken about it, and no wrath is falling on those defaulters. It means that what? It means there is a difference between the instruction that the president is giving and actually what is happening on the ground. We have had in this country a situation where appointments have created conflict, and intentional conflict, whereby a minister is destituted. Let me call it that way, destituted, removed from one particular village or region or tribe, and another person who is next house is appointed, not out of merit, but because you want him to fight that person who has been destituted or who has been removed. So you find that there is this issue of conflict. Creating this kind of conflict in order to govern well. Because you realize that when you create conflict as a leader, you are free. The people down there, they keep on fighting, and you don't have any issue to worry about. We have had appointments in Cameroon which are appointed in terms of, actually compensating people. They are not appointing them because of regional balance, but they are compensating them And at one moment, you heard about what we call the national cake, and that thing has even reduced about homecomings. When the national cake was shared, it was time to go back to your village as a matter of homecoming. I know the whole village now had to rejoice that this person was appointed and is coming. At that particular time, you realize even that the person who is appointed is not the person who represents the village. It's even the person who is only loved in Yaoundé. We have even had the appointment recently concerning the Anglophone crisis, where you have some people who have rejoiced, who have enjoyed some appointment, not because they actually represent the people, but because they have a good image in front of the president. So you find that there is this conflict that goes on because of who the president decides to appoint, and they don't appoint in consultation or in regard to what the person represents as far as his own base is concerned. People do not respect the president because in Cameroon, there is no distinction between the party and the administration. It means that what? When you militate well in the ruling party, you have the largesse to be able to do anything and go about it with. Because you will not be reprimanded for what you have done. Of course, you militate, you pay your dues, you pay, what you are supposed to pay as far as the party is concerned.
Yeah, but we have CPDM militants who are in prison today.
Those you don't even have to go to that case because those are extreme cases, and there's even some schools of thought who say they went to prison not because of investment but because they were looking at the presidency. They were looking to take over the president, and we have heard some of these things. What will we talk about a person like Fonjidam who was pressed 2 years, and then 2 years before he was sent to prison as the best Director General of the whole of Cameroon. Can you imagine what kind of, how do you explain that? There's somebody praised by the head of state as being an exemplary, and before long, that person finds his national institute in prison. Is it still because of embezzlement? that within 2 years after receiving the praises, then he invests in that kind of amount of money I'm talking about. That now makes us believe, those schools have taught that some people go to prison not because of what they are embezzling, but because of their political leanings, of their political aspiration, and that the president feels uncomfortable having them, those people around him.
Okay, you think it's because of the facts that they belong to the CPDM party, that they disregard the orders of the President of the Republic, who is the national chairman of the party?
I think, of course, experience has shown us in Cameroon that when you are of the CPM, it means that you are at the commanding end. You are at the level of authority, and all other person is at the level of solidarity. I mean, that is what proves for who you are in Cameroon. We have had people who brag and they say that nothing can happen to them because they call the name of Pobia every year. And that is why when you go into offices, what happens is that to show that you are at the commanding end, you have the effigy of the president behind you. Okay. And when you do something, you do not want to take responsibility. Each time you want to say it is the president of the Republic who has done this, as if you do not have your own responsibility to do. In a real society, you take responsibility for what you do. If you do something, I mean, I think that you should be able to let the people know that you have done this because you have given the responsibility. Each time you do something, you have to call the head of state. It means that you are not worthy. It means that actually the colors that you are holding, which is the CPDM, I think that is what is driving you crazy.
Now, the president has said it, the law has said it, yet it's not been respected. Are these the persons who are also plotting against the success of the government? Especially, we have a prime minister who is there, who is also hoping that these guys respect what the government is saying so that things move forward. But they are not respecting it. Is it a spirit of rebellion, a spirit to destroy things, a spirit to ensure that only their own benefit? Because
it's generally, Mr. Liu, it's not a spirit of rebellion. It's rather a spirit of compensation. Okay, what we have that is ongoing in Cameroon has very good laws. Okay, you go around and read laws in the world. Cameroon has one of the best laws, but the problem with the country is the fact that it's its applicability. Okay, we have a problem in applying the laws in Cameroon. Now, the president says, okay, it's time we made regionalism. I want to remember, Mr. Liu, that when ENS Marwa was created, we remember a statesman of the country, Speaker of National Assembly, it was an open secret that those who came from that part of this country were given extra favors, irrespective of whether or not they made it or not in the competitive exam. So it's an issue of compensating those who have been within the corridors of powers. Now, Mr. Liu, you will take a very simple example. You want to go to Sonara, that is next door Limbe, and ask yourself who are those at the Battle of Command. If you cut down from, say, the first top 5 personalities and want to pick out who is an Anglophone, I doubt if there's any. I doubt very much. This is, if we wanted to talk about regional balance, the institution is in the southwest, it's in Limbe. This is Sonara, it's in Limbe. Now, who are those who are at the Battle of Command? Of course, they come from the south.
No,
that's the first thing.
No, the board chair is from the southwest, the general manager is from the west region.
Okay. Now, it means that if we wanted to look at regional balance means that, Mr. Liu, a region where something is, the region should be given priority. Okay? That is the first. The second example, if you read Taputu's The Immortal Seat, in it, he, in a satiric manner, he presents the commander who welcomes the newly recruit, the police at the police college in Mutengene, where he says something like sideway, nowdway, and says ngongima instead of God made man. Now, this is purely example of somebody who is the head of an institution that is purely in an English-speaking environment who comes from the South region. I think that the problem is not a rebellion, Mr. Liu. The problem is just that the head of state, maybe out of his magnanimity, says, okay, these are the laws. Because, Mr. Liu, the truth is, why we have ministers, I want to remember that maybe in the days of Aijo, we used to have something called national education. National education cut across the different educational sector, the basic, the secondary, and the higher. But today we have basic education. You have Professor Laurent Sesh Etunzingwa, which means, okay, sir, you manage basic education problems. Within basic education are your problems. It's not my problems. Now, you have secondary education, you have Professor Naluva Lyonga, which means problems within secondary education is channeled to a level. At the level of secondary education, you have higher education rather, you have Minister of State, Minister of Secondary Education, Professor Jacques Famdongo. You see a vocational education. That is where Chiruma Bakari comes in. Now, you down discover that you have youth and sports. It's a complete ministry. Now, Mr. Leo, if the president says, okay, at the level of regional balance, a competitive sports
and physical
education.
There is a ministry of youth.
Yeah. Now, it's a complete minister. Now, Mr. Leo, if the president says, okay, basic education, there should be regional balance in your recruitment. Because we know that at the level of the teachers training college, teachers who go in need to later on wait for integration. We know how integration are done. There are moments where if the government wants to absorb 300 teachers, out of the 300, maybe 150 comes from a particular region, 50 comes from one region, and maybe one region has just 1, 2. Now, those who are at the level of the different ministries use this as a bargaining power. They tell the president, okay, we recruited 300 teachers. This comes from the Northwest, this comes from the Southwest. But I think that regional balance in my own definition means that, Mr. Leo, if we want to take in 30 teachers, say for instance in ENS, which is a higher teachers training college, and we're taking in 30, Cameroon has 10 regions. If we want to divide 30 into 10, it means that we're talking about 3 per region. That's what we're talking about. It's not that the South should have 10. We are now left with 20 to divide within the remaining 9 regions. That's where the problem is. It means that the laws are very good, regional balance. And that is why before now, I told you something, Mr. Leo, I witnessed the regional elections where a particular division in the Northwest argued that we cannot have 2 persons already from Mezam. We come from this area, Furawa. We have not been, we don't hear in everything you've said here. Our own division has not been made. So I think that, Mr. Leo, it's time that the president, or rather the powers that be, reconsidered regional balance. Because maybe we are mistaking regional balance to mean that one region has 8 and then other regions can have 1. That is the first. And secondly, we are also mistaking regional balance to mean that regional balance means that
who is mistaking?
Not even who is mistaken.
No, can you it was established and you read out the motives for it.
Yeah, no.
What do you mean by we are misinterpreting?
No, the laws are stated.
The quota, yes.
The quota is there. But now, Mr. Liu, I'm saying that the quota is clear. We are here and discussing about it because it's not being respected. If we were respected, we'll not talk about it.
And my question to you is, why is it not being respected?
It is not respected because I said that it's not an issue of rebellion, it's an issue of compensation. Prince Joel Mukage is tomorrow made Minister of Secondary Education.
Yeah, maybe it's compensation. Why is the president calling them to respect it? Is it not because he has discovered that they are not respecting this quota?
Yeah, they are not respecting it. And that's why I'm saying that it's not being respected because persons who have been appointed are rather compensating those who saw them at the top. And when these compensations are made, we start having divisions that are reduced to a subdivision. And that is why you go to the Northwest, it's Mezam. You go to the Southwest, it's Fako. You go to the Center region, it is Mfundi. You go to the South region, it's Eboloa. Now, if we had a kind of a decision, somebody who comes maybe from Bisongabang, that is in Manu.
Yeah, but
at the end of the day,
the
regional balance is done, he's not touched.
The division in the South region that always receives the fattest chunk of money in the South region is Jai Elobo, not, yes.
Oh, you know, the Jai Lobo because more the head of state.
Yes,
and
where
more of the ministers come from. Jai Lobo counts at least 6 ministers in the present regime. It's very normal that
from that developmental projects are more stocked in that particular part of the division too.
Let me just take some messages and then we continue. Good evening, Mr. Kum. Oops. Good evening, Mr. Kum. Please ask your panelists if regional balance respects meritocracy, because the way your panelists explain regional balance is like Cameroon lands will be given appointments based on regions they are from. Rather, are supposed to be based on, please let your panelists focus on meritocracy meritorious appointments, okay? Rather, appointments should be based on merit, not on regional balance. Yes, but the law does not say that if you do not qualify because of regional balance, you should be appointed. For the case of entrance into schools, it is stated clearly that the best should be taken. And that even for the case of those to be taken from specific regions, the persons who are supposed to be selected are supposed to score at least above 12 average. So regional balance does not connote taking just anybody in the name of regional balance. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I love the submissions of Dr. Akko John. The concept of regional balance in Cameroon should be strictly checked because recruitments into quotas or parastatals have been concentrated in some regions at the detriment of other regions. Albeit, there is law regulating the recruitment into parastatals. Applicability is a problem. This needs to be checked. Suleiman Koto Mission, okay? Greetings, Mr. Liu, and all the viewers of Prime are on my media Prime. Shipu Clement watching from Baba One Ndop. The program about regional development is quite interesting, and I wish every youth watch and know what we are going through. Special greetings to Dr. Akko. He has spoken well. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Kum, and all the panelists. I'm enjoying the program. I wish our leaders should at least learn a lesson from Dr. Akko as he is hitting the nail on the cap, given that this country is being centralized just to a few towns. Daniel is writing from Fundong. Hi, Mr. Leo. Good evening. The program today is so interesting, and I love the program. I'm writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you. Now, we are talking about this issue of regional balance. Let's look at it from the development perspective. Some divisions, like you highlighted, are also cheating other divisions within regions because we say we want regional representation from the national perspective. But looking at it from the divisional, regional perspectives, some divisions are also not treating others fairly. We all are in Douala, chief town of Littoral region, but also chief town of Vuri division. But if you were to look at the resources that come out of this region, and then you look at Kongsamba, that is a dying town.
Look at Mombo.
Look at look at Idea here, which is dying. But you discover that there is a lot that the Mungo division, because most of these plantations, that is where the wealth comes from, are in the Mungo and then in Sanaga Maritime. But those towns are also not given as much attention as, like you said, Yaoundé for the case of Central region, Mezam for the case of the Northwest, Fako for the Southwest, and
yeah, you realize that when we look at it, it is very shameful. It is shameful in the sense that we have a government that is dormant. We are using, for example, Evekam. Evekam is located in Kribi, and Evekam pays taxes in Douala. Alukam is located in Idea. Alukam headquarters is Douala. We have Supermore in the Southwest region, which people are not aware. The headquarters is Douala. The same water Supermore produces at Mile 29 is sold for 400 francs in the Southwest and sold for 350 francs in Douala. So you cannot explain. Then you go somewhere where we have the recent horrible situation was in Jombe Penja, where the mayor even lost its life. Yes, Paul Erikige, fighting that where the product is coming from. Respect and honor should be given to that place. How do you carry the wealth of one division to enforce another one because it is the chief town of the region? Where is regional balance when it comes to infrastructure? We have said several times, when you look at Douala today, the congested nature of Douala warrants a government investment policy to tell us that any company which want to invest in Kongsamba, in the littoral, should be given tax-free. Can you imagine what that will do? That if we want to create and decongest the town of Douala by creating tax havens in areas where companies think they cannot go there to invest. Why do you take raw material from somewhere? I'm talking of a region where I know very well, like that of Mbam Enobu. Mbam Enobu produces one of the highest cocoa in the central region. But a lot of those companies' headquarters are located in Yaoundé. A lot of them go there, carry the cocoa, bring to Yaoundé, then transport it directly to Douala. Some of them even own headquarters in Douala, meaning you are buying cocoa from Mbam Enobu. In the central region, you pay your taxes in Douala. You simply go there to purchase the product. And this is where the raw materials is coming from. What becomes of the benefit of those people from that particular product of theirs? By infrastructure and development, it warrants us that if you are a cocoa producing company, get to the area where the product is located, so that the capacity, training, personnel, in terms of expatriates, those who are farming and working within the cocoa area should gain from its products. You cannot be talking of cocoa. Today we are talking of Sodekao, that a lot of them go there to fight the development in those areas, but the headquarters of Sodekao is based in Douala. Meaning benefits gets to the farmers. Of what proximity is this development to the grassroots? These are some of the problems which I think that we failed to observe within regional balance. Regional balance, I just said about infrastructure. If we were to set a stadium in the southwest, I told several people, Kumba can host a national sport stadium than Limbe and Boya can do. We know the conglomerates of the population of those areas and the proximity even of Kumba to the other divisions of the region. But when you have two prime ministers coming from FACO, every project which is going to intend to attract people will mean it is for FACO. For what people might have not known, that the people of FACO are one of the most greedy group of persons. I'm just telling you, Mr. Leo, you will not, accept that.
Doctor, please.
It is a lone region. It is a lone region. The one region.
Dr. Ako,
I'm saying the FACO division remains the most greedy division.
Dr. Ako, those decisions are taken in Yaoundé.
I said it is not Yaoundé. Let me tell you, maybe something you don't know. In the southwest region, in the southwest region, and even Cameroon, all over.
Dr. Ako, please, I'll take exception to that. Please, we should unite.
No, we are not. It is not. Mr. Leo, by saying they are greedy, let me tell you the greedy nature of the FACO people. One of the region which is not a chief divisional headquarter in the whole of Cameroon is Boya. Boya is a provincial or regional headquarter, and the divisional headquarter, where is it based? In Limbe. I have not seen that in any part of Cameroon, where the divisional headquarter, the regional headquarter is not the divisional headquarter. But now, you will see it in all infrastructure today. You find some people thinking that they own the town and they own the lands, and that others should not have access, because those things are in the land. When you fight for yourself, because historically, and will buy the infrastructure of the area, which is granted by the government, which some of us are saying, that regional balance should not be mean that those who are in power should appropriate for their people and forget about other regions. This is what we are saying here.
Doctor, I talked about Santa for the Northwest, Mezam for the Northwest.
It's what I'm talking about.
I talked from Funzi. I talked from Vuri. But do you have a particular problem with FACO?
It's not. I'm telling you the battle we have now. You should not be talking like somebody that does not know. I know maybe you are trying to close it up, but we are saying that the FACO division is the lone headquarter where the regional headquarter is different from the divisional headquarter.
Yes, you've said.
Why do they display that? They would have put the regional headquarter still there, so that around the region, which we are talking about the University of Bamenda. Yes, if we get into details, you should know that the University of Bamenda too is not only located in Bambili. There are a lot of faculties found in other Bamenda 1, Bamenda 2, Bamenda 3. This is what we are talking about.
But they are all in Mezam.
That's what I'm saying, that at least
we have Bui division.
There are other schools affiliated.
We have Dongamantu, but everything is in Mezam.
This is what we are saying, that they are found, first of all, the fact that they are dispersed in other cities or quarters around. Where you call Bamenda, there is Nkwen, which is not equally maybe Bafut.
We are talking about.
We should know that.
Please, we are talking about Mezam division.
Yes, we are talking about the division.
All of what you are saying is Mezam division.
Please, Mr. Leo, don't forget. Prince Joel made a mention here.
There is Momo division. There is
that is when it comes to divisional equality or divisional balance. Yes. Look into it too. It might get to a division, but subdivisions too are lacking. This is what I'm trying to explain here. Move ahead.
Please, I've stayed in FACO for a very long time. I have so many FACO friends, and they have been very hospitable to me and to so many other persons. Joel, you know that. And I would not really want to give the impression that these persons who have been so friendly to us are greedy. Please, don't know. You people, maybe you have some Southwest scores to settle. Don't use prime to do that. When people meet, you saw that. Yes. Yeah. We're talking about this issue. How do we? He raised the issue of coming up with a school or an institution that is supposed to regulate this issue. Before recruitments are done, they should look through them. If examination results are supposed to be released, is that going to fix things?
Yes, I think in addition to that, I think there should be what we call the regional decentralization, whereby the regions, should organize its own recruitment when it comes to some of these parastatals and so that are concentrated.
Do and submit?
Yes, they do and submit. They said, I think you will kind of give that credibility to what we are talking about here, because when those things are centralized in Yaoundé, those in Yaoundé, they do what they do. They do not know exactly, because just like somebody was saying, that sometimes when you appoint one person from a subdivision, you think that you have appointed for a whole division. That is where the problem is coming from. Whereas if these things were handled, we are talking about decentralization now, they will be able to know exactly where it is lacking, where they think. Yes,
that's that point. Yes. That's why I said, because FACO had successfully 2 prime ministers. That means that the highest infrastructure in the division goes to FACO.
Appointed by the president.
We have not refused.
Yes.
That is for the nation.
And secondly, I think there's one of the problems that we have is we have talked about. See, we have talked about the issue of the CPDM members.
You have benefited more than.
Yes, they see have somebody at the level. I'm not quoting him, but I just want to tell Dr. Ako that when you look at education today and those who are of English extraction, there was one time a minister, once your name was Ayok Agbo, Bisom, Besem, you passed ENS without a second thought. We cannot. There was. You guys benefited.
I was saying that
FACO can also cry for
one of the loopholes, one of the problems that we have as far as this shared development is concerned in the subdivision, division, and regional level, because we said we have CPDM mingling with the issues of the state. In each division and each region, you have what we call the main person of the CPDM. I don't know how they call it. They have their palans, what they call it. The Central Committee representative for the Northwest, Central Committee representative for this division. And nothing would happen in that region or division without the visa of these people. Of the Central Committee representative of that particular region. These are some of the facts that we should resolve. Yes, these are some. Yes, and these are some of the, I'm sure maybe this is what Dr. Aku is also trying to talk about. Yes, yeah, because these people, that's it. Okay. Nothing will go. That's it. Nothing will go in the Northwest without Firmu Yang saying yes. This will go. This will go. Nothing will go in the Southwest without saying this. So these are some of the things that we think that the party is mingling with the issue of the state, and that is why the issue of decentralization may never see the day of light because of all of these things. Because these people drag the blanket to themselves. They will not give it to a tribe that they have issues with. I've even had issues. We talk about the Northwest. I've had some people who have said they have issues with a representative, civilian representative of the Northwest, because this thing is coming to their division, and once he reaches his table, I don't know how founded that is, but I think from past experience we can say that this is true, because some of these things have happened. So we think that the people should be involved. The administration should go closer to the people. If administration goes closer to the people, things will change. We have over concentration of things at the regional level is a prototype of what is happening as far as Yaoundé is concerned. When there's this administrative bottlenecks, things are so concentrated in Yaoundé, and those who are at the regional levels do feel that As things are concentrated in Yaoundé, they too should concentrate things around them so that you shouldn't leave and go, maybe you leave Bamenda, you're going down to Noni, and you don't have route to go down to Noni, to go and get this or get that. They want those things to be concentrated around them so that they have those facilities. Everybody wants to enjoy those facilities. We have even talked about the sports infrastructure. People want things closer to them. They don't care about those people who live in the hinterlands. And it's just as if the country ends in Yaoundé, or that the country, the division ends, ends in the Wuri, or that the region ends in Douala, or whatsoever. So we think that administration, when administration is brought closer to the people will be able to discuss more. And we have talked about regionalism this time around. And I think that this is one of the things that we should talk about, because they are the people to call the shots. The regional president and his executive are supposed to call the shots. And the question we are asking now, for the past 2 years that they have been there, what significant change have they done? What have they been able to do about the issue of even regional balance? I have not heard any of them come out actually and say this appointment, because this thing even starts with the public investment budget. You find that some villages who have heavyweights, you have more investment budget goes to those villages. And those that don't even have anybody to lobby, they don't have anything. I think that is the place of the regional president and the executive to be able to, try to branch out some of these advantages and some of these developmental features. Let each and every division and every village feel some of these things. If not, at the end of it all, we will just feel that this issue of regionalism was just to please Cameroonians, and nothing is, it is a shoe for proof of. So I think we need people who have concerns about what is happening in our country. We need people who are ready to work for the people, because I think that people are not working for, people are there to serve themselves.
Okay, people are there to serve themselves. Mukage, how do we turn things around to ensure that these quotas, as read out, we say Adamawa 5%, extreme north 18%, northern region 7%, central region 15%, south region 5%, east region 4%, littoral region 12%, west region 13%, northwest 12%, and the southwest 8%.
It's simple. Mr. Leo is just holding those who have been appointed to book. The only time where I saw that regionalism was effective in the country was during the just ended regional elections. If you go to the southwest, it's difficult to have a division without a regional representative in the executive. But let me tell you, Mr. Leo, that in the just ended regional elections, the president comes from Meza, that is Professor Fru Angwafo, and one of the SGs come from Donga Mandun. So they did everything. I actually saw how the gymnastics was being done. Everything was done. That in such a way that those who matter in the decision making, president, vice president, secretaries, as well as those who are the House of Chiefs and others, should meet up with the different areas. That's the first aspect, is to follow them up. And this is very easy, Mr. Leo. I was saying that when you go to the Northwest, we know those who call the shots. When the head of state wants to take certain decision, given from those who've had to corner within the political landscape, they'll tell you that it is difficult for a decision to be taken within the Southwest as a whole, for instance, without Peter Mafanimo Songe being ignorant of. It's difficult for a decision to be taken in the Northwest without Philimu Yang, former Prime Minister, being ignorant of. Now, Mr. Leo, it will be very easy. I'll give you a very simple example. When you go to next door Susa, the subdivision is called Fico Bonalea subdivision. Where the people march, everything is concentrated in Susa. Where the subdivision headquarters is in Bonalea, you pay 1,000 francs or 1,500 francs to go to Bonalea. This is an area that the divisional officer, the commissioner, the commander, the mayor are all in Susa. They only go to these areas on the 11th of February, 20th May, Women's Day, and other events. And this is an area that, if they show you how enclaved the area is, people only go there during festivities, come back. But if the regional balance had to touch these people who are in this area, will be different. Another example I want to give you, Mr. Leo, is in Mr. J subdivision. Proud to one of the Secretary of State, there is a small community where, because on the 11th of February, people used to march in their small villages and only came up to their subdivisional headquarters, which was Mr. J on the 20th of May. But now, before you are appointed, the people were marching in Fume. Now, you are now minister, you bring down all the people to Chongi. You limit them there. Nobody goes to Mfume. I doubt if Paul Biya is aware that people used to march in Fume, now march in Chongi. So I think that it is not an issue of the head of state, Mr. Liu. It is not an issue of the head of state telling Ferdinand Gongo. It is an issue of our consciences. It is an issue of us telling ourselves that, okay, you are now the minister. Before you were minister, this is how it used to be done. Because one thing about Cameroon is, once you are appointed minister, if your village used to have 2 houses, before you know it, it's transformed to a city. There is an area in Misadil subdivision called City today. The people who come from Chongo used to be a village that is just divided by a river, Mfume and Chongi. They call themselves Mfume City, or rather Chongi City. This is because they benefit a largesse directly from somebody who calls the shots, just like Dr. Ndimancho puts it. So I think that, Mr. Leo, if we work with our consciences, Paul Biya knows that, okay, Northwest has what you call the 12%. That's what he knows. It is not him to come and follow, say, the minister of that area to apply it. We have lots of ministers from this area, a lot of ministers. If you go to the Southwest has 8%. Is somebody in Bisongabang, in Emmanuel, feeling the impact? Is somebody who is in, call it Boile, feeling it? Is somebody who comes from common emission, feeling it? So it's an issue of, you are the minister from this area. If something is allocated to this area, Mr. Liu, see to it that all the different divisions, all the different subdivisions benefit from it. Recently, Mr. Liu, I watched a picture that took me mad within my division, and I quarreled, and people were like, you like seeing errors in everything. Now, in it you will hear that Donga Mantun MPs visit the think and tanks of the United States of America. Within it, you see 3 MPs. You see the MP of Ndu, you see the MP of Nkambe Central, and you see the MP of Mwa. The MP of Misade Ako subdivision is not even there. Yet it's Donga Mantun that was in America. I think that it's time that we started correcting some of these mistakes. How do we correct them? Let us talk to our consciences. That is the best thing, Mr. Leo, because if we are able to look at ourselves that this is the right thing, let us start doing the right thing. Because Paul Biya cannot be all over. Remember, I told you, Mr. Leo, that if you look just at the Ministry of Education, we have like 4 different ministries. Okay. It is not Paul Biya to come and tell Minister Nalova that, okay, teachers should not go on strike because you have not paid their salaries. It is the Minister of Secondary Education to say, teachers mark the GC, they should be paid. Okay. It is the Minister of Secondary Education to tell ourselves. Because we are talking schools, back to school is 1 week, and OTS, honor trust supported. I discussed one of the teachers, they are thinking of taking back the strike. We are not encouraging them to go on strike. Okay. But they are saying that what the government promised us is still to be seen. We are just seeing, well, Mr. Liu, we are just talking about the CDC, workers of the Cameroon Development Corporation, that you and others of my media prime took it upon yourself to see how you could assist the parents in these areas go back to school. In this program, I think weeks back, you sent some of the reporters of my media prime, and we saw how the parents were crying. Okay. But the question is, should it always be Paul Biya? Paul Biya has made it possible. When we say this, some people will think that, okay, you have been bothered about things that I know. In every subdivision, Mr. Leo, in Cameroon, in every subdivision, it is difficult. There is none. That there is nobody who is maybe a secretary general in a certain ministry. Let the people help them. Because at one time, they are the people to go and lobby for this project.
Mr. G has not so many don't have place. Good evening, Mr. Liu.
Which doesn't have Mr. Liu? Is there a subdivision without a secretary?
So many for information. Please.
There are many.
So many.
But they have parliamentarians.
Please. No, please.
It's okay, we don't get to that.
Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to all the panelists. Thank you.
Is that?
Yes. Thank you for this topic. It's a sensitive one. I'm learning a lot as far as regional balance is concerned. This is writing from Kumba. Good evening, Mr. Liu, to all of you. Fantastic program. Esther is also writing from Kumba. Hi, Mr. Leo. Good evening. I enjoy your program, but there is one thing I want you people to understand. You people are in the studio in order to allow people to open. So, Mr. Ako is right. Dr. Ako, you are talking about regional balance. Everything is in limbo. You are talking about stadiums. A town like Kumba, that is biggest town in Southwest, does not have a stadium. So I strongly support what Dr. Ako is saying. Thank you very much. John is writing from Kumba. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. China is developed today. Please. China is developed today because of European companies. When you are making shoes, put your company in Xi'an and bring your goods to the port in Douala. Master Henry is writing from Kumba. Thanks for getting to you, Mr. Liu. Please, may I ask the conditions involved for Dr. Tetafon to partner with our cooperative society? Okay, this is not the program for today. Good evening, Mr. Liu. A regional balance policy that focuses on balancing individuals and the regions is useless. Regional balance that can be felt by everyone should be focused on infrastructure than individuals. I think regional balance is not respected because those in charge have little knowledge of the regions. Some do not even know certain areas exist, and even if they know, they have little or no knowledge about the person in the area, in that area. I was in Furuawa, which is a subdivisional headquarters, up to 2010. People who have never gone out of Furuawa have never seen a car. They know not of a phone call. Even a radio station from Cameroon is not received in Furuawa. This is just an example, and there are maybe other areas worse than this. I begin to question if the authorities are aware and refuse to act, or they don't even care to know. I support the idea of Dr. Ako to create an institution for regional balance, though the management of the institution too may be constricted and manned by certain individuals. Boni is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Leo. The truth which we all know but are afraid to say is on the screen is that nothing is applied in Cameroon as regional balance. Rather, they apply CPDM parties members osmotic power imbalance. Sonny White is writing from Boya. Mr. Leo is trying to play emotional balance. Why? What do you mean by emotional balance? Good evening, Mr. Leo and your guest. I'm Sebastian in Obala. What causes regional imbalance in Cameroon is cross-centralization and numerous political-oriented appointments. I think political decentralization and not the concentration can solve this problem. Okay? Good evening, Mr. Kum. Regional balance to Mr. Paul Biya is only seen in the appointments of prime ministers in the Southwest and Northwest region. Please tell him to allow us. Okay. Munga is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you in the studio. The regional balance is very scrupulous in the Northwest region, in the part of the Bamenda University, in that it's all based in one community area. In other ways, how can a town like Bamenda be without a football stadium? I'm tired of this country, okay? Good evening, Mr. Leo. This is Helen writing from Bamenda. There is no decentralization in Cameroon. How do you explain the fact that they launch a recruitment concours for midwives and nurses into civil service and it is written only in Yaoundé? Hello, Mr. Leo. A developed Cameroon with many private projects flourishing all over the place would have led us not to talk about quotas in parastatals recruitment. Yaoundé and the CPDM are to blame. Max Begeni from Dusseldorf in Germany. Good evening, Mr. Leo. This topic needs more time and attention. There is nothing in Cameroon as regional balance. What is practiced is favoritism, regional representative, because meritocracy is not respected. The maker is writing from Boya. Okay, the maker, I hope your place is doing well in Mile 16 Bolifamba and the other companies dotted around Boya. This one says, no balance, Leo. National printing press is full of people from a particular region. Good evening, Mr. Leo, and to you people in the house. Wow, I didn't know that there is somebody that can talk for Noni people. I'm from Fabrice from Jotin Noni. Thanks to you people for the good works. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I love the program. John is writing from Boya. Good evening to you, John. Hi, Mr. Leo. I love the program. I like what Mr. Ako is saying. Decentralization is more theoretical than practical in Cameroon. I'm Maxwell writing from Cambe. Good evening to you, Maxwell. Good evening, Mr. Leo and panelists. Dr. Ako has spoken well, but the real problem is the government in Cameroon that is fond of divide and rule. It begins amongst the Southwesterners and then to the other Northwest. Emmanuel is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Leo and crew. I'm happy with what you and your panelists are doing, but Dr. Ako should not blame only the backward people and forget about the Bayangis and Ejagams in the past been cheating the Akwaya people. I'm Agbo Peter Ashu, writing from Tiko. But that is true, eh? Manu is not Manfi. Akwaya is also part of Manu now. We are not defending. But you people are dragging everything to.
I have not said it's strong.
Okay. Mr. Liu, I suggest we sell our country and share the money because our leader are the last batch of youth who took power. The issue is that all our efforts with the debate doesn't matter anything to our ancestors. Big T, writing from Bamenda. Now we're going to be looking at our second topic for tonight. Okay, you had something to add? Okay, go on.
I had issues here. In fact, some of us have said that the concept regional balance is educationally backward. Okay. And that there is a need for a better principle, that of meritocracy. We think regional balance supported more of mediocrates, and we mean somewhere that those who are not intelligent, equal to the task, will be called to govern and manage the state. And which, if the nation is that the nation belongs to all, the constitution of this country said justice shall be rendered in the name of the people of Cameroon, which means that if you are a Cameroonian and that we do everything for the interest of the nation, the country must see into it that every part of the nation develops, that every part grows, and that every part of the nation should host companies capable of developing talent and training for the future. Education is an asset today that is supposed to be found everywhere, and that if there's a need for the faculty of medicine, for the US somewhere to be located in Indian, there is a need for it to be there. And that the faculty of agriculture, if capable of being located maybe in Kupe Maninguba, it is possible for it to be there. This is what we mean regional balance. Somebody made mention, but I believe he was not understanding what he might have raised. There's what we call political deconcentration, which he is right, that we cannot find a state like Cameroon. All the arms of government are located in Yaoundé, and we are talking of regional balance. What will it mean if political power, executive power headquarters is based in Yaoundé, and then the legislative power is located in Boya? And imagine that somewhere the judicial power is located somewhere in Maroua. Is it not still the form of regional balance we are talking? You find all the armed forces, when you talk of Bar 001, is located in Yaoundé. Is it possible that the military base, Air Force One, located in Bafoussam? This is what we are talking about, regional balance. When you congest one city with a lot of infrastructure and institution, what becomes of the other cities and towns? What do we intend for it? So somewhere, President Paul Biya, head of state, has a mandate. Yes, you go to some countries around the world, they will tell you that there is an executive capital and then there is a legislative capital. For those that are not our, maybe a country like South Africa, that people in Johannesburg don't answer the same like those in Pretoria. And that is just the executive headquarters in Johannesburg. And that Pretoria answer for legislative. It has decongested that town in many domains. Academically, there are a lot of schools. Remember, sometime we hammered on the Anglophone crisis that the National Police Academy was in Mutengene. Today we have a fraction of it, where highly rated officials are training in Yaoundé. Emir is in Yaoundé. Everywhere and everything of the highest standard, Enam is in Yaoundé. Doesn't mean that these schools cannot be located in other regions, towns and cities across Cameroon to give them life. When you go to a division like that I'm talking here, like in Bamayo, just the forestry school in Bamayo, you need to see that that life, that particular town has a different life. If you deconcentrate Enam today and send it somewhere and we talk of Furawa, imagine what will become of Furawa. People will need to know why in Furawa. How does Furawa look like? But today we talk of those places when we talk of poverty, when we talk of hunger, when we talk of agriculture. This is what those places are known of. Are they not good enough to host some infrastructure? Yes, we were talking of the Bakassi Peninsula. What form of institution for the state to maintain its governance? This is what we had felt. For us to make Bakassi Cameroon, it would have been possible that the National School of Administration or the MIA, National School of Armed Forces, located in Bakassi. Just imagine the idea the nation was going to have. This is complete takeover of the region. But when you go, yes, we have created the Bakassi Development Authority. To what extent they have done their job? Build schools, there are no students. Roads have been made to get to those schools. Just imagine that. Send one institution there of a national standard, and we see if people will not move there. We know of the palm oils. Today, palm oil produces somewhere in Indian, the headquarters of palm oil is Douala. And then board meetings are held in Limbe, where there are good hotels. Indian, where this company is being hosted, has no infrastructure to show for. This is what we're talking about, regional balance. It is a need, like I said here, that for us to be pragmatic, in a state where we are working, we need meritocracy. Regionally develop the infrastructure and everybody be placed on the equal table. If it is 12 average, good. Let's make sure that everybody is 12. Not when in one exam, others sat for the concours, some were not successful, they were given a pass. Others, those who passed, could not benefit because their region already have the highest intellect. We have a conflict. At the university, Catholic University for Central Africa, people accuse the administration that everybody found in that school as a medical officer was from the West region because they had their money. And without gainsaying, some regions have been enforced from creation with a lot of academic infrastructure, and others have access to this education without. Somebody, who were talking here, somebody like Jerry Rawlings in Ghana said one of his highest problem when he discovered, because he was an Air Force captain, that the first time he went through over Ghana, he realized that those who are living in the suburb, if given the same infrastructure, can even be more performant than those in the city. And so his next development was that by the time he was leaving office, when he came to office, just about 25% of Ghanaians in the rural areas have access to education. But by the time they were leaving, they were very proud that over 87% of Ghanaians, and some in those suburb areas, won scholarships that those in the city could not have access to. So there is a need for regional balance to work, reinforce them by infrastructure, then give them the same possibility. We can work for the nation on the principle of meritocracy rather than mediocrity.
Kudos to you, Dr. Aku. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm happy with the good job you guys are doing. I think our leaders have to stop playing around and make things clear with respect to the implementation of regional balance in Cameroon. Muga writing from Menda. Good evening. I'm Vitalis writing from Bamenda. Regional balance can never balance unless the political landscape is level. For example, Bamenda is made up of Bamenda 1, 2, and 3. But the University of Bamenda is not in Bamenda, but is in Bambili, called University of Bamenda in Bambili. This is just because of the type of politicians we have, okay? Good evening, Mr. Liu. I love your program. It's always an impact. And Akwafe Franca writing from Teze. Okay, good evening to you, Akwafe. Stanley Ba from Kumba says, good evening, Mr. Liu and your members. The topic is very interesting. Can you kindly allow Dr. Ako to finish airing his view? Then you correct on what not to talk and block him halfway. Thanks, Ba Stanley is writing from. Yeah, if I not allow him to finish what he had to say. Hello, Mr. Liu and crew. Greetings to members of your crew. Mr. Liu, aid your colleagues not to cry too much when he even has ministers. We in Menchum are in hell, as Bena, Kumafuru, Awa, and Fungom have war stories. The water that could put food on our table is not there. Let them appoint a son of the soil, decentralize the University of Bamenda by giving whom the agri school, because we have structures in womb. Enoch is writing from womb. My brother Enoch, I endorse that talk. Good evening, Mr. Leo. The foundation of everything begins with God. If the church cannot practice regional balance, you expect the government to do so? Godson Tamen writing. Greetings, Mr. Leo. Please, GCE board is yet to pay secretariat workers for this year. It's almost more than a week since results were released, and it's almost 1 month or more since the secretariat work ended. Okay, you're writing from Boya. Maybe we'll discuss about that, but this is not a topic for... yeah. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I think regional balance should be focused more on infrastructural development than on recruitment. Wishing you all the best. Okay, I'm sure we're going to be discussing about the issue of the GCE board. We are still doing some findings on to have more information so that in the days ahead we're going to be discussing it. Good evening, Mr. Liu. This topic is very sensitive. I've learned a lot. The truth is that regional balance cannot be realistic with this very regime. Aku Gilbert is writing from Tico. Now, since we are left with just 20 more minutes, we are not going to discuss our second topic. We'll move it to another day. But someone says that we need more of regional development than representation by persons in these offices.
Of course.
That is appointments.
Yes, and actually this is what personally I'm advocating for. I said, looking at regional balance, we should concentrate on infrastructure and social development in the regions. When it comes to meritocracy, yes, we can go for recruitment into schools and some of those things and get on. What is the use of regional balance when you say you recruit one person out of 10,000 in a particular village or in a particular town or whatsoever? It doesn't make any sense. But if development, infrastructural development is brought to the people, for example, you know, farm to market routes, I mean, villages connecting with towns, subdivision connecting with division connecting with regions. I think that the people feel they balance more than appointing one person who will come at the end of a semester or after 1 year and distribute 10,000. I will usually see some of these elites, they do. They go and people down around, we have, as we said on this platform, we said most of these wars, most of these crises actually have started because the people do not see the development that is going on in these regions. We realize that like in the Anglophone crisis, we've had people like Ndimancho BBC, whose, bone of contention was the fact that the Bamenda town was actually, deteriorating and nobody was caring about it. So I think that people, and you find that most people, especially the youths in the regions, are indulging in crime wave because there is no development, there is no employment. It's just, let us look for ways in which you can reinforce and create small, medium-sized companies or medium-sized businesses or whatsoever industries so that we can be able to employ these people. We talked early, there's an article I wrote about the reasons for the Boko Haram in the North region, and I said one of the issues is because the youths have been abandoned and the elites account for the reason why most youths indulge into these issues. Is because the elites eternally impoverish the youths. They leave them in their destituted nature, so that at the end of when they come to the villages, they keep, those youths, they gather to them and they give them 1,500, and they think that they are pleasing them. They are not pleasing them. And you see, when these youths sit for long and people come from out and they brainwash them, they have never seen dollars, they have never seen euros, and somebody comes and gives you $1,000 or even 100 euros and asks you to take a gun and do this to this other person, you are forced to do, or you are actually led to do because you have never seen that kind of money before. And secondly, you are idle. And therefore, we think that if development is brought to the people, even just farm to market infrastructure development, I think that these youths can be able to indulge in farming. One of the bone of contention is that people work back in the villages. because they do not have farm to market, they do not know their products, their produce, they are not sold, they don't know where to sell them. I mean, it causes a lot of frustration in most of those people. So I think that social development, infrastructure development is better than actually picking 1 or 2 people and appointing to represent people in Yaoundé, because even those we even call parliamentarians, we look at the Anglophone crisis that started. There are many senators on the Anglophone region, many parliamentarians who do not even know how their villages are for 5 years now. Are those people still representing the people? They are not. So even you think that even the parliamentarians who think that they are represented, they are not. And therefore, one more of just taking one person from the village and appointing as a minister, it doesn't represent the views of the people. So I think that development is, human development is important. We should be able to pin some of these things in those villages that will keep the youth busy. Let the youth be indulged into issues that are actually, self-entrepreneuring. It is very, very important than pinpointing, taking people out and thinking that they represent the views of the people back in the various villages.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Kum. I'm Emmanuel, enjoying the program from Bafusam. A special greetings to Barrister. I love this enthusiasm. Regional balance has failed. The only paracetamol for Cameroon is federation. No federation, no peace for Cameroon. We are just beating around the bush, Mr. Leo. This one says, there is nothing like regional balance. It is incomprehensible that Supermont, Sonara, CDC, oil and gas in Southwest and headquarters in Douala. This regional balance equation cannot be balanced. Tambe writing from Bonaberry. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Kudos to Seako John. Perfect analysis. I'm William, writing from Kribi. Okay. Good evening to you, William. Good evening to you in the studio. My Media Prime is doing its best to see that our nation emerges with topics like this. A country like Cameroon should fully implement regional balance for emergence to be real. Cameroon cannot be ruled properly with everything centered in Yaoundé. Our leaders should stop making us feel they attended the school for corruption. Terence Ayuk is writing from Muteng. Good evening to you, Terence. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Martinez from Douala. How do you explain a regional balance when all companies is in Douala? Cement is being carried from Douala to supply all over the nation. Yes, but it is Douala we should also understand that it is thanks to the positioning nearness to the possibility to import raw material for the production of some of these things. But now, we're talking about regional development and not necessarily from the perspective of appointments. Should it start with the public investment budgets allocated to the respective regions?
Of course, it should start from that. Mr. Leo, in my introductory statement, I remember that the Jan Lobo, that prides itself having one of the highest ministers in the country, in the last budget had so much of money that could be divided to at least 4 different regions. We are talking about a division that has money that could be given to an entire region. So I think that, first of all, development comes from what is voted as budget. So the budget that is allocated not only to divisions as well as regions should be that which is reflexive of the entire divisions, because the quota is very clear. We should be giving down budgets, taking into consideration not those who are up there, but taking into consideration the population of the area. I want to remember that, may so rest in peace, Senator Kemende, may so rest in peace, at one time had put the Minister of Secondary Education on a very tight corner and an open session at the upper house, that is in the Senate, where he asked the Minister of Secondary Education that, Madam Minister, ever since you became Minister of Secondary Education, the Northwest region has increasingly been on a decline so far as budget is concerned within your ministry. Tell us, Madam Minister, what the Northwest has done for you. I think that those things should not be the case. We should be allocating budget, because, Mr. Leo, take it or leave it, the budget or the money that is used for development does not come from individual pocket. It's what the government gives that is used for the development of the different areas. So the money that goes to every region, to every division, should be cognizant to the population, should be taken into consideration the different areas of the country, because if we want to give budget to a particular division, to a particular region, then we always have a situation where the South, where the president comes from, having a higher budget. It was the same case when Ahijo was president, that the North, the Grand North, that was later on divided into 3 other regions, it was always having an increase in its budget. So we should be having a budget in the days ahead that is reflexive of the different regions. If we have an equitable budget, then Mr. Liu will not have a problem of regional balance. Let us have a situation where, for instance, Northwest has the same budget. We'd say the South region, we'd say the center, we'd say maybe the Southwest, we'd say maybe the littoral. And now, let us hold our leaders accountable. But now when you have a situation where the Northwest has a budget that is reduced, or say the littoral has a budget that is that which is the budget of the South regions, how do you then hold your leaders accountable to tell you, okay, this is what we had? But we have an equitable budget that cuts across all the different regions, Mr. Liu. It is from there that we can hold those who are responsible accountable, that, okay, this is what we had as budget. Tell us what you used it for.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Liu. I think if the councils are empowered and executives are conscious, most of the villages in Cameroon will feel the taste of the national cake. Babasin is writing from Betois. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Moma Allen from Bamenda. Thanks for this interesting program. For regional balance to be effective, our government leaders have to be God-fearing. Look at the condition of roads in Bamenda and look at roads in Francophone region. It's true that they are marginalization, okay? Good evening to you people in the studio. There is absolutely no administrative concepts or reform in Cameroon that is crafted by the CPDM that can be useful in advancing Cameroon. Even if you use sons of the soil, they are all corrupt. We all have elected parliamentarians, senators, and mayors in and from our regions. How many of those parliamentarians and senators have adequately and effectively used their micro grants to better the lives of their people? When the head is sick, the body can't be well. Stephen Mwambo is writing from Boya, I'm sure, around Sosoliso, a neighborhood that I've lived in for a very, very long time. Good evening to you, Mwambo, and to your wife and kids. Good evening. I'm called Nyugi Bless in Mukage. I want to thank you for what you people have been doing. Thanks for the kind attention. Okay, thank you too. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I'm Kundu Waters from Kumba. Dr. Ako is the supreme. My regards to him. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I love the program. This evening, Dr. Ako, you get sent. I'm Justin from Bamuka. I have a bag of the price for Doctor. Yes, send 2, one for him and one for me.
And so you and I can share.
Yes, I really long to have a taste of the price. Good evening, it's Esther from Bamenda. I love the program. Good night. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Until we have leaders that have respect and fear for humanity, things will always be a type. Thank you for the good job you are doing. I love the program. Fola Franklin is writing from Douala. Good evening to you, Fola. John writing from Boya. No regional balance. You come to National Printing Press. Everybody is speaking the same language. I ask if there is any Anglophone in Boya, okay? This is the second person writing about that. Good evening to you all in the studio. I really love your program. I pray you should continue with a program like this to educate the Cameroon. Zulkifli writing from Ndu. Okay, now Dr. Ako, we're moving towards the end of this edition of the program. You want an institution, you want regional development also. But now let's even go by the quotas. Even if the quotas were to be respected squarely, that we have in our respective parastatals persons from these regions, and then appointments also respect this. But do these people actually carry the aspirations of these people, of the their respective regions. Take the case of the North. We see how the North is, but we have people appointed from there and the other regions.
Yeah, one of the things which I said, and Ndimancho equally said, when we go with development means, first of all, the educational system and the politics of the nations are taught in those schools. If you are representing a nation, you are defending a nation. I want to get people to understand that once you become an American citizen, whether you are an Egyptian, an Israelite, whether you are from Afghanistan, the presidency of Homeland Security gives you the same security it gives to whosoever. It is not because you are from Ohio, or you are from Florida, or you are coming from South of Virginia, or what, Los Angeles. This is the nation to which you belong. Whenever an American is in difficulty, a single call can move the embassy of that nation to act. But since it is not taught, since people don't have feeling for one another, we don't have a nation we are feeling for. People cross the flag without noticing that it is a state flag. People pass a primary school without noticing that it's a primary school. You see accidents, knocking children in front of their school. This gives you an idea of a particular moral behavior that is absent in Cameroonians. The need for every school is that the state has an orientation of who the citizens are and the quality of the individuals. When we train on an equal base without bias, and we believe that the knowledge has gone through, there is equally a feeling that we can act for the nation without fear of who is in front of us. I remember some people might have told the story that people are awarded for simple gestures. Imagine the Malian who survived a French citizen from falling off the roof and the position that particular guy earned that day in France. A lot of people have done this in Cameroon, but it is not news because they don't come from a particular region. We need to instill the fear for motherland. We need to instill the fear for fatherland, which means if you are from whom, I'm not calling Furawa because I'm coming from Furawa. If I'm talking about Kuseri, if there's a problem in Kuseri today, that houses have been burned, I should be concerned. When we have this pathetic feeling that it is not because it's a central region that they speak the dialect. Somebody being a minister for 20 years from one single division, from one single region, you can imagine what that ministry has become. So this is what we are saying. When we train based on equality of all, when we train based on transparency, accountability, and making everything public, objectivism, what we wish to attain. Nations are constructed with economic program based 10, 3, 4, 5, 25 years program. You have to see into it that we will all respect the nation we love. We are talking of about 4 different electricity dams based in the south, but we find waterfalls all over the nation. Why all the dams in that particular region? So there is already an idea from the state machinery that certain projects are not fit for some divisions. So for us to develop infrastructure, yes, there is a there. We were supposed to be proud that there is Menchum. Why then destroy the Konye electricity plant? Was Konye not hosting the electricity plant? Was it not serving the people of that particular area? We needed to reinforce. Now we are building what they call thermal plants. Where are they located? Why do you destroy what we have to create others far from the people that they cannot manage? If we talk of infrastructure, development, education, what form of higher institutions we have all over the country? Empower the whole nation, and then Cameroonians will act equally. Why has this problem evolved and been invoked now as being problematic? In the past, Cameroonians feel the nation. I could see parents standing before the flag. I could see parents holding the hands of the young ones. They don't know who they are to cross the road after school. You see taxi men, Okada riders respect any child in uniform. Today is not the case. You find civilians fighting with police officers. It simply indicates that the country has gone deep into rottenness and that there is a need to correct. We need to correct the feeling for the nation. I should have a respect if I know the police officer defend the nation. If I know the police and the gendarme defend me, I should respect and protect them when they are in danger. Okay. This is the nation we want. Okay. If the infrastructure can guarantee equivocal training, then we are proud of the nation to which we are, and then we can appoint anybody, knowing very well that he mans and he can manage a job.
Okay, good evening, sir. I love your program. Keep up the good job, sir. I am Takan Jackson. writing from Bambalang. Oh, Bambalang. Bambalang.
Bambalang, the fun.
I remember when I came to Bambalang and I went to the market, you see the fish that is sold almost everywhere in that market, and today is a different story. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I love your program. Dr. Abek, tell them. Hillary, writing from below Foncha in Bamenda. Good evening, sir. I like that program. It's very educative. Ncha Boris. Kum, writing from Womb. Good evening to you guys watching us from Three Corner Womb, from Nikom in Womb, from Wanangon, and all the other quarters out there. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Is Senge. Anita from Bangem. I love your program. It is very interesting. God bless you. Good night to you, Senge. The person who is talking about the rice from Ndop says, how can I send the rice? Just call me after the program. Call the number on your screen after the program. I'll tell you how to send the rice. Good topic, but let Dr. Ako not forget that since power comes Sonel up to date, only Manu people have been regional delegates or regional directors. No FACO person has ever been appointed. Okay. Good. Yes, facts are coming out now. Yeah. The guys from Akwaya are also complaining. That yeah. Yes. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I want to thank you people for the great job you are doing. Regional balance with all other things we may mention will never solve our problem in this nation unless this regime is out of place. I'm Evans, writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, Evans, and thank you for participating. This one says, good evening, Mr. Liu. Great job. I hope Yaoundé is listening. Ghana is writing from Bamenda. Yes, everybody is listening. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The panelists, preferably the chiefs, should be in charge in terms of employment and infrastructure, because even the mayors are interested in building their houses and empowering only family members. Philip, writing from Kumba. We may have to discuss this issue where development benefits families, and not the division or the regions. I want to say that we have come to the end of this edition of the program. Thank you for coming. You have one last thing to say? Yes,
last thing to say is just to thank those who were involved in our outreach to the CDC children back to school, and we are thanking you for all that you did, your contribution. We are coming to the end of the contribution tomorrow because we need to be able to assist these children go back to school history. From what we got from the friends and all of those concerned, we got about 285,000 francs, of course, from goodwill, and we are thanking all those who made that gesture. And it's still available. Yeah, it's still available. It is ongoing. Yes, for those who still really have to give something. So we'll be reaching out to some children of the cities to see how we can give some few packs. We cannot help everybody, but at least the little that we have gathered will be able at least to change, the face of something in a family's life that those may not have been able to go to school if we didn't give them an assistance. Okay. So we thank you so much.
Yes, so actually last week we launched an appeal to help some children from the CDC to go back to school. Some persons reacted and have contributed something very small, but we are still going to use it even if we were to send 5 children to school. It is going to serve a purpose. So it ends tomorrow. That's what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you think that you have a book or a pencil or you can pay the school fees of a CDC child, please get to me after the program using the numbers on your screen. Thank you for coming.
Thank you immensely, Mr. Liu. It has always been a privilege being on board. I want to congratulate Dr. Ndimancho and you for the wonderful job you're doing to assist those in CDC. Also, I want to add my voice that just on Saturday, Mr. Liu, with the Peace House that you're coordinator, we were able to put smiles on the faces of at least 50 internally displaced persons. We were able to put smiles to their faces to see them go back to school. I saw parents cry. I saw children who have been longing to go back to school weep that having just an exercise book, the parents told me, it was a motivation, so they should go back to school. I think that those of goodwill who listen to, like what Ndimancho has said, should be able to support, because it's not an issue of money. Just a single pen or maybe say an exercise book will go a long way to send a child to school. With this, I want to send a special good evening to Mwabe Mark, who is the focal point for internally displaced persons in Susa, who did a magnificent job to see that he brought these children together. And I want to congratulate you, to Solange and the entire Peace House who also assisted. I want to say that you gave the elephant share to see that these children go back to school come September. I want to say a special good evening to those who watch in Messages of Division, most particularly to Lord Nkinda Simon, who should be watching the program, and those who are watching in the Southwest region.
Okay. Good night to everyone. Thanks for such the program. We long for more. Okay. Moma is writing from Bali Kumbat. Okay. Great village too. Mr. Leo, it is the guy who is to deliver the rice to you. Okay, please. I'll discuss with you after the program, please. Good evening, Mr. Kum. I would like to have the number of how to get the Ndop rice. Thanks. Pa Peter also wants to get the Ndop rice. Pa Peter, writing from Limbe. My guy from Ndop rice. We have more demands for Ndop rice. Good evening, Mr. Leo. My name is Emily from Douala. I love your program. Thank you very much, Emily. I'll get to you after the program so that I'll tell you how to send the Ndop rice. I would love to eat it. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. Once more again to remind our viewers that the CDC workers have been on a stress for the past 6 years, and there is a need to assist those who are in really difficulties. For those who have not done so, please just get in contact with either of the panelists, and I mean Mr. Leonard and Dr. Ndimancho, quite available for that exercise. It is never too late. It is never too small. You can push over and push forward the dreams of some young Cameroonians to be true. They are brothers, they are us, and that we have a duty over them. Please do everything possible. We equally thank the management. I'm talking of Mr. Tambe Bryant for the excellent exercise and what he has been doing over this particular medium. For those who equally wish to assist, you can get into any of the management personnel of My Media Prime TV, and that particular assistance will get back to the grassroots or to the needy. We are proud, equally greeting a very good friend, Metro Benje Kobaruk. It's a pleasure being with them today. They have been watching us and praising all what we have been doing. Thank you very much.
Okay, good evening, sir. I'm enjoying the program as well from Bamboo Daniel, writing from Douala. Thank you very much. And greetings, Mr. Lou. I prefer to have the concept of one community, one estate enforced rather than one community, one minister or one director. Are is writing from Kumba. Thank you all. Oops. Good evening from Tokyo, Mr. Liu. I love the program. Hope authorities that be listening. Dr. Ako nailed it big time. Shea GP. Thank you all for watching. Eli and Desmond, thank you for producing. Tabby Tambe Bryant for supervision. Thank you very much. To all of you, we love you so much. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.